So the last session we had, we talked about singlehood. Anyone who can remind us the definition of singlehood in our context? What is singlehood as far as the SLDP context is concerned?
What I remember is that singlehood is the state of exploring and discovering one's individuality, purpose, and
Yes. Thank you. Something to add? You wanted to add something? Okay, go ahead. A phase of self-development. And then, anything else? It is also a state of wholeness and completeness. Not perfection, but being whole and complete. And something else also to be able to note is singlehood is not a destination, it is a journey. And as far as I'm concerned, I can be married but single. This means I am married, but I'm still working on myself, on my identity, on my individuality and my purpose. And the more I work on my singlehood, the better I become as a spouse. So having said that, today we want to take it a notch higher. And I'd like to begin by asking this question. What do you think is the richest country in Africa? Which is the richest country in Africa? Any, like a per capita GDP or Egypt? South Africa? Why Egypt?
If I remember, unless it was overtaken, GDP was the highest at some point.
At some point. Which year was that?
I don't remember, but in the 20s.
In the 20s. Okay. And then you said South Africa? Why South Africa?
because like a portion of South Africa contains gold,
Okay.
which they export for monetary use.
Any other thought as far as the country you consider to be the richest in Africa? Nigeria. Why so?
There was an article I was reading on my based on their GDP. It's among the top 3 countries with the highest.
GDP. What about DRC? What about DRC? Have you, do you know anything about DRC? In terms of? They have lots of resources, and it's, I think, the largest country in Africa so far, in terms of size. So, having said that, what do you think makes a country to be considered to be the richest? There's the GDP, the per capita resources. What do you think makes a country to be rich? What is the most important resource in a country? The people. Why the people?
Because the people determine everything that happens in that country. In this case, I mean, for example, taxes, and also the work that can do towards raising.
Fundamental, you are very correct.
For the living standards of the people.
Yes, like, do you know Singapore doesn't have any minerals. It doesn't have any, even in fact, they don't have their soil. They consider themselves as if they don't have any soil. They don't have any energy sources. Yet, it is a first world country. They cannot even grow their own food. So imagine if you are doing if you are seated in an exam paper and someone told you that this country doesn't have minerals, it doesn't have any soils, it doesn't have any energy source, it doesn't even grow its own food. You'll consider it to be a poor country, and yet it is a first world country. Why? Because the leadership of that country have invested in the people. In terms of education, in terms of health, and in terms of just equipping the people and making them to be very valuable people. And I'm beginning with that knowledge or that story because we talked about singlehood. You being an individual who is valuable, who has found your identity. And if you are single, the next important thing in your life is another single person. I don't know whether you're getting me. Yes. So what I'm trying to say is, relationships are also the most important things in your life. Among the other things, many things in life, relationship among the other important things. There's a study that was done by Harvard University. It's called the Harvard Longitudinal Happiness Index. And this is what they found out. They have been doing that study for the past 86 years. They began the study in 1938. And they identified 724 men, and they began that study to try to identify what really makes people happy and fulfilled in their lives. And they followed their lives in terms of just, but then they were teenagers. And they came from different backgrounds. And one of the things they noted over the years is, some of these people went on to be factory workers, some of them to be janitors, some of them to be presidents, some of them to be engineers, some of them to be scientists, all those professions. But one common thing that I found among these 724 people, who as of last year but 60 of them were still alive. They found out that the people who, among them, the 724, the ones who lived longer and healthier lives, were people who had healthy and meaningful relationships. So according to that study, because data cannot lie, you can use data to lie, but data in itself cannot lie. It shows that for you and I to be able to live healthy and meaningful lives, we need also to be able to engage into healthy and meaningful relationships in terms of our friendship, family, and all other and our networks. And that is now the thrust of our topic today. Today we want to talk about what we call social capital. Social capital. How many contacts do you have in your phone book? Since I don't know your name, I'll point at you and then you will tell me. Just tell me your name and then tell me how many contacts do you have in your phone book, roughly?
My name is Teresa. Maybe like 1,000.
1,000? Uh-huh.
My name is Leontila and I have 215 contacts.
215? Uh-huh. Okay. The gentleman with that T-shirt, how many contacts do you have in your phone? 1,000? Uh-huh. The lady at the back, kindly. Huh? 470. Okay, we all have different numbers of contacts in our phones, but how many of these people do you talk with regularly? The kind of, if you are given a choice and told, I want your phone, I'm giving you a new phone. And I want you to, I'm also taking this SIM card. I'm also going with the SIM card, but I only want you to have the numbers that you consider to be important, the contacts of the people you consider to be important. How many would you retain? It's amazing that we can have 1,000, 2,217 contacts in our phone, but we have very few people we consider to be very close to us. And the first thing we like to talk about when we mention the issue of social capital is the categories of friends we have in our lives. The first category is seasonal friends. Seasonal friends are people who come into your life in a certain phase of your life. For example, maybe the ones you are with in primary school, high school, college, university, the people you worked with, the people who are maybe your neighbors. And then when that season is over, that friendship or that association automatically, or rather gradually fizzles off. Do you remember the people you consider to be your BFFs while in campus or even in high school? Best friend forever. But right now, even if you met them, you can't even stand talking to them for more than 2 minutes. Why? Because you don't have anything in common with them. Why? Because you were with them and even close with them then, but that was a season. And this is the beauty of friendships and associations. When you notice that this was a seasonal friendship, you learn to be able to let go. But if you don't, what will happen is you will continue pushing, calling this person, reaching out to them, but they're not interested. And that's why it's important for you to consider among your 1,000 people in your contact or in your social circle, who is a seasonal friend, and begin to let go. The second category is general friends, acquaintances. Those who are people you'll meet and talk about politics, football. Our president has become a subject, maybe talk about our president a bit, our government. General things that are a bit just on the surface. You engage with them at a very superficial level. Some of them are your classmates, neighbors, maybe even colleagues, but your association with them is very superficial, very general. And then the third category is frenemies. Frenemies, from the word friend and enemies. Frenemies are the kind of people you associate with because there are certain benefits you derive from that friendship, or you cannot avoid them. Maybe they are colleagues or even some family members. But behind, subconsciously, both of you know that you don't really like each other. Have you ever met people, have you ever been with a friend and then they met their friend? Or you were with your friend and then you met a frenemy? And you are excited meeting them, you maybe greeted one another, hugged one another, but after they stepped out, you or your friend made a snide remark about them. I don't know whether you've noted that. Why? Because this person is a friend, quote unquote. You associate with them, but for something you get out of them or they get out of you, but really sense, they're not people you really fancy. And guess what? Frenemies also are part and parcel of our circle. And there are certain things that they bring on board as far as our association is concerned. And then the next category is a fair weather friend, from the word weather, like the seasons. Fair weather friends. Fair weather friends are people who are in your life because of your status, or because they derive certain benefits from you, or because you share a certain common thing with them. But the moment, if it is about status, the moment they realize that maybe you have downgraded your status, maybe you used to have a good job, you've lost the job, maybe you used to have to be married, you are no longer married, maybe you used to have a good business, they unconsciously or consciously start disconnecting away from you. I don't know whether you've heard of this guy called Vitamin Demo. He's the ambassador to Belgium. Currently he's the ambassador to Belgium. He was a permanent secretary in Kibaki's government. And then when Uhuru Kenyatta and the current president took over, Jubilee government took over, he wasn't retained as a permanent secretary. So he was narrating this story and says that when he realized that when that happened to him, during that season, initial time, he began wondering whether his phone was okay or not, because it was not ringing. In fact, he had to go and check his phone and see, is there a problem with my phone? Why? Because he used to receive at least 5 calls in an hour. And there were under 200 emails in a day. But then all of a sudden, when the world realized that he's no longer the permanent secretary, what did they do? People just disconnected. And then he began wondering, why? You mean all these calls? Of course, I know much of the calls I was receiving was work-related, and the emails were work-related. But some of the people who used to call me when I was permanent secretary are people I thought they could continue at least reaching out to me. But there was breaking news for him. He realized most people, fair weather friends, they relate with you because of your position, your influence, or what they get out of you. When that one is no longer there, they disconnect. So he began doing some research and realized that here in Kenya, like high-profile individuals who maybe had who are CEOs, they had prestigious jobs, or they had positions in government. Many of them die within 5 years of retirement. When they retire or maybe leave their position, within 5 years they are dead. Why? Because when you are no longer in the limelight, people don't care about you. And therefore, it makes you lonely. It makes you feel depressed and feel like you are not needed. And that is why it's very important for you and I to also realize that among the 1,200 and something people you have in your life, there are those ones who are fair weather friends. Not to kick them out of your life, of course, but to identify. Because if you do, then it helps you to be able to manage that very well. I was talking to a friend this morning before I came, and they were complaining that I have this friend of mine, but I'm beginning to have issues with them because I don't feel comfortable with them. And they were comparing that friend with another friend of theirs who is very close. I told them, you are right and wrong for one reason. You are right because for sure you are feeling uncomfortable with them, but you are wrong because this is not a close friend, and you are trying to make them to be a close friend to you, and they're not. Do you know that people who consider to be close friends, but they're not to you? To them, you are at the bottom of the food chain. And therefore, it's very important for you to be able to have that in mind. And then now, of course, we have the ideal one, which is the all-weather friend. These are the people who are long-term friends, people who no matter the season of your life, if you lose a loved one, if you lost your job, if you had a breakup, whatever it is, these are people who will stick through. These are people who will be there after midnight when other people have gone. These are people like those who have read the Bible. These are the people who are like Job's friend, the 3 guys who heard that he had lost everything, and they came and stayed with him for all that while. And there are very few again. Why am I mentioning all this? Because when we are aware about these categories, we know how to relate with the people in our lives. And also the other thing we do is we manage our expectations. If you are not very close to me, there are certain things I wouldn't expect from you. But if you are close to me, there are things I will expect from you. Having said that, I want us to take like 5 minutes just around our table. And I want you to just answer 2 questions. One, how many long-term friends do you have? How many people do you consider to be your long-term friends? And then, how many frenemies do you have? And why do you consider them to be like that? Just that, and then we'll continue around your table. How many long-term friends do you have, and how many frenemies do you have? Find someone to talk to. I want to add one on that list: toxic friends. Toxic friends. Just from the word toxic, these are people who kind of poison your attitude, your mind, your circumstances. Have you ever had those people? You are having a very nice time. Maybe you passed your exams, or maybe got a good job, or you just got into a relationship and you meet them and relay the information to them, and they just begin poking holes in that to the extent that they say, okay, are you even sure you're going to have the right cluster for that course? I just told you I've passed by. You're thinking about, they began talking about whether you're going to have that course in university, and you've just given that information. What tribe is she? Oh, no. Those people, no. There are people who are very negative. Every kind of friendship has its own challenges, ups and downs, but toxic friends are perpetually negative, either in their vibe or in their attitude. And it makes them friends. You know why? Because they are in your space, in that 1017. They are not people there are people who you can't even call for your wedding. There are people you can call for your birthday party, but you know them. You know that this category of people is, I will not involve them to this extent.
Okay.
So we are just doing a categorization, because if we limit friendship to only close friends, then we may let's say that we have 5 close friends and enemies. But all these other friends, but they were just categorizing them. There was a writer, I like reading their work, engaging with their work. She was narrating this story that she went to visit this lady. She's in her 60s. And as a matter of fact, she sat down and she was served a cup of tea. But when the lady who was hosting her began talking, she was just complaining about how her former employers were bad because they sacked her, how the people in charge are not very loving, how the neighbors are not very good, how her children no longer allow her grandchildren to come and visit. And she says this, she made this statement and said, that was the longest tea I have ever taken in my life. Like, how can I be in a space where someone had invited me for a cup of tea, and other than we catching up, she's just complaining about the bad things that have happened in her life. So when she left, she says, how can someone be like this? How can someone be miserable, lonely, and bitter? And yet, when you look at her, she's healthy. She has children who she's complaining about, but these children send her money. They pay for someone to be able to work, to help her around her place. She has a church to go to. And then she noticed and said, no wonder she has very few friends. Because she complains a lot. I don't know whether we've come across such people. They complain a lot. There's always a negative vibe about them or about other people. Those are toxic friends. So we'll take it further to now some of the attributes and qualities that can make us to be good friends to other people, or rather to make healthy friendship. And we'll begin by the law of subtraction. It's called the law of subtraction. The people who subtract from our lives, we tolerate them. The people who subtract from our lives, we tolerate them. Maybe they subtract money from us, or emotions from us, whatever it is, we tolerate them. And then there's a law of division. The people who divide in our lives, like people who, when they come to your life, they find that you have 10, but they divide it by 5, it becomes 2. We avoid them. These are now the toxic friends. Toxic friends are the people who now divide our lives, and we avoid them. These are people who some of us have even blocked maybe on our phones. Or we know that if we know they're at Fungamano on that day and we can avoid being there, we avoid being there. And then now we have the law of addition. The people who add into our lives, we enjoy them. The people who add value into our lives, we enjoy them. And then now there's a law of multiplication. The people who multiply into our lives, either tangibly or intangibly, we cherish them. We cherish them. And these are now the category of long term. These are people who really add value in our lives. And then additionally to those ones, we also have the principle of trust. For us to be able to make meaningful relationships, we need to be able to cultivate trust. Trust is just, in a nutshell, it's the quality of being reliable and dependable. The question I'm asking myself and I'm asking you guys is, can you be categorized as someone who is reliable and dependable? Can people count on you? I know of people in my lives who, unless I see it, I cannot believe it. I have a former boss. Something happened some years back when I was working with them. We were making a trip to go out of the country. And we needed resources to be able for me to go with the team to that country. And I met him like on a Friday, and he was supposed to provide the resources that Friday. And he told me, by the way, just send me the quotation and I'll send you the money. By Sunday, the day we were supposed to travel, don't send the money. And then I try reaching him, calling him. He's not picking the calls. And it is not just the first time he had done something like that. It's over and over. So the next time he said, okay, can the guys come and travel? I told him, unless you send the money. You imagine telling your boss that. He felt so bad. How can you tell me that unless? I told him, if you don't send my money, I'm not organizing for the team. Why? What I was just trying to tell him in a nutshell is, I don't trust you. One of the worst things that we can ever hear from someone is when someone tells you, I don't trust you. Because trust is such a big currency that when you have it in your life, it can open doors for you. When you don't have it in your life, it can also close a lot of doors in you. There are people who have very less resources in their lives, but because they are trustworthy people, they have access to a lot of privileges and opportunities. And I will challenge you and I to be able to cultivate that. Trust is very important. And even when we'll talk later about relationship and marriage, now that is even fundamental. Very, very important. The other principle is the law of mutuality. Mutuality. Mutuality is basically the principle of reciprocation, being able to do to others what you desire them to do to you. So as you relate to people, always have that in mind that if I expect someone to respect me, am I respecting them? If I expect someone to listen to me, am I listening to them? It's not so much about 50-50, but it's about the awareness that in this engagement and in this association, I need to be able to be someone who not only receives, but also gives. Yeah. If I only expect things from people, but I'm not working at also doing something towards them, then it becomes lopsided. That relationship becomes lopsided. And that's why, as we noted in our discussion, there are people who will only call you if they need something from you. A friend of mine was telling me about this issue of guaranteeing people for loans for people in circles. And a colleague came to him and for him to guarantee him, and he did. He guaranteed, he became his guarantor. But one day when he needed also a guarantor, when he went to the colleague, do you know what the colleague said? I don't do such things. I don't engage in such business. You mean I was a guarantor the other day, but you cannot? Yeah, I don't. Just imagine. There was no mutuality there. And now, if you are not someone who practices that, it makes that relationship lopsided. And then the other principle is the principle of confrontation. When you are in a genuine friendship, it's important for you to consider confronting your friend, of course in a respectful manner, whenever they have an issue that needs to be addressed. In this regard, allow me to quote the Bible. There's a verse in the Bible that says in Proverbs chapter, if you can note it, Proverbs chapter 27, verse 5-6. It says this: better open rebuke than secret love. And then it goes on to say that wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses. So also when we are in a genuine, healthy relationship or engagement, it's important for us to be able to confront one another, of course respectfully, and in a way that also honors the other person, and say, okay, this is not right. And of course, not all friends have the capability of doing that, or you have the capability of doing that, but there are people, I hope you have people in your life who are so genuine and authentic that they would rather confront you and tell you are wrong and even lose their friendship than leave you like that. Do you have those kind of friends? Yes. If you do, then you are safe. I don't know whether you remember the story of a king who went to a designer of clothes, and then I told him, I want you to design for me the best attire that you can ever do. And then this guy designed for the king a very good attire, and he put on. And then he went around on a horse, walking around, and people were clapping and saying, king, live forever. That is the best attire. But now, when he reached a place, he met a boy. I met some people, and also with a young boy. And then when the boy heard people saying, king, live forever, you have the best attire. And the boy said, no, but he's naked. So all this time, the king was naked. But no one was willing to tell the king that he was naked. All of them were telling him, you have the best attire. But the boy was the one who had the courage to tell the king, you are naked. So you can imagine you've been walking around naked. So have those kind of people who can confront and say, no, that relationship, that choice, whatever you're doing or you're saying, reconsider it. It can save you. In terms of your health, it can save your life, it can save many things in your life. So it's important to consider confrontation. And then the next one is magnetism, the principle of magnetism. You attract who you are. Whether you like it or not, you attract who you are. Show me 5 of the people you consider to be your very good friends, and I'll tell you who you are. Why? Because the law of magnetism says, if people come to you, or you come to people depending on your principles, your values, your ideals, and what you consider to be important. So if you're always attracting a certain kind of people who you don't like, either you are a counselor, a therapist, a psychiatrist, a pastor, because pastors need to deal with people who are, or look in the mirror. So if I want to attract decent, honest, purpose-driven people in my life, I also need to be able to work at being a decent individual, purpose-driven person in my life. You get what I'm saying? If I want to attract an honest girlfriend, so at least I try to be an honest dude. You get? If I want to attract an honest wife, at least I've also become an honest, eligible bachelor. So we attract who you are. You attract who you are. And the last one on my list, not necessarily exhaustive, is the principle of being authentic. Authentic. Authentic is generally, it means being genuine and sincere. Not perfect, but genuine and sincere. I have a few people in my life, or several people in my life, who are very authentic. What you see is what you get. They have no facade. Of course, they're not perfect, but they have no facade. What you see is what you get. Real people, genuine people, sincere people. In our world today, we have the concept of branding. And we are always being challenged to be the best brand, to stand out of the rest, to be the best, to be the most interested person in the room. And I don't dispute that. But when it comes to relationships and friendships, I dare say that don't be the most interesting person in the room. Be the most interested person in the room. Can I repeat? Don't seek to be the most interesting person in the room. Seek to be the most interested in the room. You know why? Because people are attracted and they open up to people who are genuinely interested in them. So when you interact with people and engage with them, try to know, who are they? If they are new people, what do they do? What are some of the challenges they are going through in that season? What has happened to them to make them maybe challenge their thinking and their perspective of late? What do they feel about the present issues in their lives? or the current issues of life. Just be interested with someone. And when you get interested in other people, they open up, and also they get interested in who you are. And those are some of the qualities that make you to be someone who is not just interesting, but interested. And this is the thing. When you become the most interested person in other people's lives, eventually you become the most interesting person. So authenticity is important. It's important. I'd like to put a short break at that, and then maybe if you have a question or a comment before we move on to the next few minutes, we finish up. Any question? I'm understanding you, and I think it's good for you to ask that question, because even for me, I share this, but sometimes it can be confusing, because like I said, sometimes you can be a good person, someone who is authentic, but you attract certain people who are not like you, and for the right reason. Maybe they're attracted to you because they admire you, and they want, there's something they admire in you, and they would like to have that. So there's nothing wrong with that, because we, as individuals, we've been put in this world. Among the many things to do is to meet a need, to solve a problem, and to add value. You get? Yes. So if you are being a single person and someone who is valuable, makes you attract people who you can meet their need, solve their problem, and add value, then it's okay. What I'm trying to say is avoid the tendency of you having your core team made up of people who are not really of a good character and values, because eventually they rope you into that stuff. And then the other thing I also want to agree with you is that there are certain things that for me, I consider not to be fundamental. Things like personality, things like preferences, and that's why you may get, if you've noted, no matter someone's religion or community, you'll notice that couples tend to have different personalities. Like if the wife is a minister of information, the husband is someone who comes. No. Huh? A communication consultant gets married to an accountant, things like those ones, and an engineer to maybe a marketer, things like those ones. Why? Because personalities, when it comes to things like personalities, the opposite complement one another. You get what I'm saying? And also maybe preferences, people, you may really like someone or be good friends with someone, or even be a couple, but this person loves this sport, the other one loves this sport. Because those are things that are not really fundamental. They're not a life and death issue. So that's what I can say. I don't know whether it answers your question. Okay. Yeah.
Still you handle that.
Fundamental one is the principle of discernment. Like when you interact, one of the things that I like about us human beings is that you can discern. You can always have that sense of intuition when you interact with people. And if you realize that these people are attracted to me, or rather they're near me because there's a certain desire they have, then you need to be able to approach them. Of course, not from a big man or woman syndrome, but from the principle of being interested in them, trying to understand them. And then when you understand them and they know that for sure you are interested in them, then they open up their lives and you begin engaging in a way that will shape their perspective and their worldview. They say people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. When people really know you care about them, they'll want to know what you know, and you can influence them in that space. So that would be my challenge to you. That discern, and if for sure they are genuine, and they are people who want to walk that journey, then you can help them. Because that is the essence of life. Like helping one another to be able to climb up the ladder, not only just opportunities, maybe change of values, change of characters. And as we'll talk more in a few minutes about now what we will now consider to be the social capital. It's usually tricky. Like I said, some of these people in our lives, like the fair weather friends, the toxic friends, people, frenemies, they are still part and parcel of our lives. Yet you also have to consider sometimes to break off completely from certain people because they can really drain you and drag you. And that's why we have been given even the measure in our phones to block someone. Because the phone manufacturers realize that there are people who can be very pestering. Maybe the people in committee who are trying to con you. This cousin who is drunk and they are always asking money from you. Things like those ones, they knew that those kind of people would be in our lives. So sometimes, for you to be able to avoid them calling you every other second, then you block them. You get what I'm saying? So also, you are able to evaluate the degree of the toxicity that this person has. To the extent that you realize, okay, is it really worth it continue having this person in my life? You have to evaluate, do that evaluation. Because much as you do not relate with people just because you want to benefit, you also have to realize you should not relate with people who bring you down and cause your life to be miserable or even endanger your life. I don't know whether I'm making sense. So you have got to sometimes you just draw a line and say, no, this one, I don't think I'll go on with it. And that's why people break up and even sometimes divorce. Well, because where they have reached, it is a place where if it goes on, it is too toxic and even dangerous for their lives. Okay, I think it's related to what you just asked. You also need to be able to, the reason why life has given us the option of having seasonal friends is because we don't have the capacity to have a lot of friends in our lives. And therefore, sometimes we are given friends according to seasons. You get? And also the issue of mutuality applies, but you cannot apply it to everyone. Like he asked, the idea of being people being attracted to you because they want to, there are certain things they like about you. So also you have got to be able to gauge and say, okay, they may not be adding into my life, but is there a role I can play in their lives to be able to make their lives better? You get what I'm saying? But also be careful about a lot of baggage. Like even in our phone books right now, I would like to give you an assignment. Go this week or in the next 2 or so weeks, go to your phone. Some of the people you have not called for 5 years, surely. So you try to even make your phone less heavy. Remove some of these people. Huh? You are complaining that your phone is hanging all the time. Some of these, remove some of these pictures. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. No, I'm saying like we have pictures we took like 5 years ago, and they are no longer necessary in our phones. So leave them. So I'll say, analyze and say, okay, is it worth it continue maintaining this person in my life, or is it something that I can do away with? So that is a principle for me I use in my life. Let me say this, some of us have the personality, like for me, my personality is, I shoot straight. Huh? Okay, I just tell you, no, this is not working. But some of us, though we've been socialized or our personality, it's kind of a challenge to be able to do that. So also consider your personality and the way you approach issues and the way you've been socialized. But at one point or the other, the art of friendship is like the art of farming. If you want to be a successful farmer, you have to learn to weed off certain things or to cut off certain branches or to prune certain branches so that the plant and can grow well and even bear good fruits. So let's move on to the next one, and then maybe we'll finish with a few questions later. The next, as we finalize, what are some of the benefits that we derive, the benefits that we derive in our socialization? In a nutshell, social capital is the benefits we derive when we engage in meaningful friendship, relationships, and networks. Advantages and benefits we derive when we engage with people in a meaningful, healthy, friendships and networks. One of them is companionship. For those of us who read the Bible, what did God say about Adam when he wanted to give him a wife? He says, it is not good for man to be alone. So we have been created or programmed and designed in a way that we are not supposed to be alone all the time. We are of an identity, but we've been created to belong. So friendship meets the need of belonging. A big word I like using is called camaraderie. Huh? Camaraderie. You can look at it in the dictionary. A sense of belonging. It connects you with the other people. Makes you feel needed and wanted. And that is a need that all of us have. We find a certain measure of fulfillment when we know we are needed, we are wanted, we are cherished and appreciated by others. So companionship is important. And then the other benefit we get from friendship networking is support. Support in terms of encouragement and inspiration from others, either in tangible ways or intangible ways. You've heard this phrase, a shoulder to lean on or to cry on. So that is what friendships and networks and relationships give us. And then the next benefit is the aspect of sharpening the saw. Sharpening the saw. Proverbs 27 verse 17 says, as an iron sharpens iron, a man sharpens another. We shape one another in a lot of ways. Like even from our upbringing, our siblings, interaction with our siblings, with our parents, with our schoolmates, that one has contributed to shaping us to be the people we are at the moment. So friendships and networks and the relationship are important because they sharpen us and make us better. I don't know, for you guys who are in campus, I don't know whether you've realized that when people come in as first years, they have a certain, they come from different spaces, and some people you wonder, hey, how can someone dress like this? Yeah? But I give them the first semester and then the second semester, their fashion sense is changing. Second year, they are totally different. You get what I'm saying? Why? Because they have come in and realized here people dress like this, they walk like this, talk like this, and they have got to be able to adapt. And sharpening the saw is in many ways, in the way you dress, the way you communicate, your values, your ideals, and other things. So friendships and networks are very important because they begin to make us to be better people, just like we make also other people better in many ways. And then the next quality that of benefit is opportunities. You've heard of this saying that your network is your net worth. Friends, you are going to succeed and access opportunities in your life because of who you are, your qualifications, your credentials. But let me tell you one thing. Much of your opportunities and success will come through other people. So be very careful and intentional in how you interact with people, because in your interaction with people, you may just never know who you are interacting with. You may get a job opportunity, you may get a tender, you may get a business opportunity, you may even get a wife or a husband through someone else. So people, don't be preoccupied with looking for opportunities. Sometimes just invest in people and relate with people in a healthy manner. And out of them will come out of. Of course, disclaimer, terms and conditions. Don't necessarily interact with people because you want something from them. But here is the thing. When you genuinely interact with people and befriend them and relate with them in a genuine manner, automatically there are benefits that you derive from there. Just like if you went into a forest and cut a tree and began the process of producing timber out of that tree, definitely you get sawdust out of it. Your objective is not to get sawdust, but in the process of getting timber, you'll get sawdust. So that is the social capital. That in the process of you just interacting with people genuinely, certain benefits come out of it. Some of them will be tangible, some of them will be intangible. Will be things that you cannot touch, but very, very, very important. And then, lastly but not least, that is now on my list, is the element of our emotional intelligence. Friendship, relationships, and networks, they sharpen our EQ, our ability to be better in our emotions. Emotional intelligence is the element of self-awareness and self-regulations of your emotions. Like being aware that maybe I'm temperamental, or maybe I'm this kind of person. And then when you're aware about that, you know how to be able to regulate that in the course of you relating with other people, or also being aware of other people's emotions and knowing how to respond accordingly. And also the issue of apologizing and also asking for forgiveness, things like those ones. And nothing shapes our EQ or our emotional intelligence like interacting with people. Because if you are an island, you stay in an island alone, you cannot really say that I don't have a temper. Because now, you can never really know whether you have a temper or not unless you interact with other people. So also networks and friendships and relationships that really make us aware about our EQ and be able to sharpen those ones accordingly. So on that note, I will stop at that. And then we can take a question or two, and then we can go into discussion, and then we'll wrap it up. Okay, let's discuss around this. The first question to be able to just discuss in our roundtable is in which aspects, or which attributes do you need to work on as far as enhancing a healthy relationship in your networks and in your friendships? Remember we talked about mutuality and all the other things. Which attributes do you think you need to work on or enhance? And then the next thing is what are some of the social capital you've derived in your engagement with other people in your networks and in your friendship and relationship? What is some of the social capital you've derived in your engagement with other people in your networks, relationship, and friendships? Which are some of the aspects of social capital you have derived or rather benefited from in your interaction with other people in your friendships, networking, and relationships? And it can cast across the board, like all the kind of friendships that you've interacted with. So maybe in the next 5 minutes we do that, and then we can wrap it up. And before you begin discussing terms and conditions, remember, whatever other people are to you, you are most likely also that to them. So you may be saying, I have this toxic friend, but sometimes you just have to be able to look and say, am I a toxic friend? You get it? You are saying I have fair weather friends, but also maybe for you, you're also a fair weather friend. So let's take 5 minutes, and then we'll be done.